Get ready for a heart-wrenching tale that'll pull at your soul, brought to you by Dark Voices. Get out of here, you crazy woman, screamed one woman with disgust. Why are you using your looks to seduce men? You think you're some kind of saint, but you're just a lunatic, added another, her voice sharp with cruelty. Suddenly, a small boy's voice rang out from behind them. Stop it, cried Ben, as he ran toward his mother, his face red with anger. Leave my mom alone. She didn't do anything to you. Why are you hurting her? He rushed toward them, but before he could reach her, an old man shoved him hard. Get lost, you little lunatic. Go away, Ryan. Ben crashed down onto the sidewalk, scraping his arm. He gasped in pain, struggling to get up. Hold on, because this story of love and loss will leave you speechless, only on Dark Voices. From a short distance away, a tall man named Callum had been watching. The moment he saw Ben fall, he charged forward, shoving past the gathered crowd. Stop it! Callum shouted, furious. He quickly wrapped his arms protectively around the thin, trembling woman, shielding her from the blows. A wooden stick meant to hit the woman landed on Callum's back instead. Ah, he hissed through gritted teeth. Sir, cried Art, a boy who rushed to his side. Ben immediately crawled to his mother, clutching her tightly. Mom, are you okay? The scene around them erupted into chaos. People backed away once they realized who had just been struck. Callum Salvatore, one of the most powerful men in the city. Slowly, the woman in his arms turned her face toward him. He moved the torn shawl from her face and gasped. His heart dropped. Lua, he whispered, pale with shock. Lua, is that you? But she didn't respond. She fainted in his arms. Callum froze as the weight of recognition hit him. There, in his arms, was the woman he had searched for, believed to be lost forever. The woman who once held his heart. The sun blazed down as 8-year-old Benjamin walked along the side of the road, hauling a large sack filled with plastic bottles, cans, and cardboard. He had scavenged them from alleys and abandoned lots to sell for a few dollars. Despite his young age, Ben was resourceful. Every cent he earned meant food for him and his mother or medicine when she fell sick. As he crouched near a vacant lot picking up glass bottles, a burst of laughter made him turn around. Well, look who it is. Benjamin, son of a whore, one of the 3 boys yelled mockingly. Hey, Bentot, isn't your mom nuts? Jeered another, pointing at him. Didn't she escape from the asylum? She doesn't even talk, said the third, sneering. Don't bring my mom into this, Ben said, fists clenched and voice shaking with restrained rage. If you've got a problem with me, deal with me. Why shouldn't we include her? One of them scoffed. That crazy woman of a mother of yours. She's the reason trash like you exists. If she hadn't sold herself, you wouldn't even be here. They all burst into cruel laughter. Look at you, one boy taunted. You might have blue eyes and a nice nose. Your skin's lighter than ours, but you're still a damn trash picker. Ben looked at them and said, how are you any different from me? You collect scrap, too. Big difference, but not, one of them sneered. Our parents loved each other. Your mom? She's just some crazy woman who spread her legs for money. Ben's blood boiled. That's not true, he shouted. You don't know anything about her. Oh, we know enough, said the eldest boy smugly. My mom told me your mom lures rich guys with her looks, then spends their money like it's nothing. Ben's fists curled tighter. He could feel the shame and rage twisting inside him. Then, in a blur, he lunged at one of them. Take it back. My mom is a good person, he yelled. But another kid shoved him back hard, and he tumbled into the weeds. The 3 boys laughed again. You're so weak, just like your crazy mom, one jeered. Your mom's a nut job. Maybe we should call the doctors to come get you, too. You probably ran from the loony bin just like her. Tears welled in Ben's eyes. He clutched his scraped knee. But the real pain was hearing their hateful lies about the only person who truly loved him. You're wrong, he whispered, trembling. You don't know her. Even if she doesn't talk, I know she loves me. She's a good person. She's not crazy. She's not what you say she is. They laughed louder, circling him. That's when someone stepped in. Get the hell out of here. Leave Ben alone, shouted Art, a 5-year-old, but a head taller than the others and built like a little tank from lifting sandbags every day. The boys hesitated. Art scared them. Not only was he strong, he never backed down. He helped Ben to his feet. Are you okay, Ben? He asked gently. Ben wiped his tears and nodded. Yeah, big bro. Thanks for coming. Art looked him over and noticed the cuts. Did they hurt you? It's just a scratch, Ben lied, hiding his scraped hand behind his back, but they said Mama's a terrible person and that she's with rich men. Art took a deep breath and said, That's not true. Don't listen to them. You know your mom. That's what matters. She's kind. She's always been kind. Those kids, they're jerks. Their parents don't care about them. You're lucky. Your mom, Louisa, she loves you a lot. Ben stayed quiet, but inside his heart screamed a promise. One day, I'll prove to the world how good my mom is. Thanks for standing up for me, big bro, he said. Art grinned. That's nothing. I'll walk you to the scrapyard just in case they try something again. I'm done with my rounds anyway. In a cramped corner of a poor urban neighborhood, inside a shack made of patched plywood and plastic sheets, Ben sat with his mother. After selling his haul for the day, he'd come home right away. He didn't want her to worry. Their house was tiny. The kitchen was barely more than a corner, but it was clean because Louisa, his mother, kept it spotless. Even in poverty, her love made it feel like home. She never spoke, but she didn't have to. Her actions, her eyes, they said everything. Silently, she laid a plate of plain rice and a single piece of dried fish on the table, barely enough for one person. She pushed the plate toward Ben and gently patted his shoulder, eyes urging him to eat. Ben looked at the food, then at her. Mama, aren't you going to eat? He asked. She looked at him and shook her head slowly. A faint smile tugged at her lips, but the hunger on her face was impossible to miss. She turned her back to him, pretending to fix something. Ben's heart ached. Even at his age, he understood sacrifice. He knew she'd rather go hungry than let him miss a meal. Mama, he whispered. Let's eat together. I don't feel like eating alone. I'm not even hungry. Koya Art gave me a banana fritter earlier. I'm still full. Louisa turned to him, smiling gently again. She shook her head, but Ben didn't back down. He scooped some rice with a spoon and held it up to her. Just a little. Let's eat together, please. She stared at him for a moment, torn. Her instinct was to give him everything, but her body was exhausted, hungry. Slowly, she reached for the spoon and took it. Ben beamed as she finally ate. It tastes better when we eat together, Mama, he said. Come on, have more. I'll eat less, I promise. She smiled at him and ruffled his hair, still silent. But in her eyes was a love so fierce it didn't need words. And that night, though they had little, their hearts were full, their bond unbroken. After dinner, Louisa quietly washed the single plate and prepared the bedding. Ben obediently lay down, pulling a thin blanket over himself. Darkness settled over their little home, lit only by the dim glow of a kerosene lamp. Ben lay on the floor mat, facing the wall. He couldn't sleep. Something was stirring in his young mind, an unease he didn't understand. The night was silent until he heard a faint whimper. His brow furrowed. He sat up and looked over to his mother. She wasn't asleep. Her body trembled under the blanket. She clutched it tightly like she was bracing against something terrifying. Mama, he whispered, moving closer. Suddenly, Louisa broke down into sobs. Words tumbled from her lips, words Ben hadn't heard in a long time. I can't. Please stop. Don't hurt me. Let me go. Please don't hurt my baby. Ben's eyes widened in shock. It was the first time in years, maybe ever, that he heard his mother speak, but her voice was full of terror as if trapped in a nightmare. He rushed to her side, shaking her gently. "Mama, wake up, please." Louisa's eyes flew open, soaked with tears. She stared at Ben like she didn't recognize him. Then, suddenly, she grabbed him in a crushing hug, as if afraid he'd disappear. "Mama, don't be scared," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her. "I'm right here. Nobody's going to hurt you while I'm here." Her body kept trembling, but slowly her sobs quieted. Ben could feel her grip tighter than ever before, like she was running from something in her memory, something too awful to name. He stroked her cheek. "Even if you don't speak, Mama, I understand you, and even if I don't know what happened, I'll never leave you." Tears fell from Louisa's eyes again, but this time they carried a hint of relief. She nodded silently, hugging him tighter. And in that quiet night, wrapped in each other's arms, a fragile spark of hope flickered in their hearts. As long as they had each other, there would be light, no matter how dark the past. A few days later, the sun was scorching once again. Sweat dripped from Ben's forehead as he hauled a sack filled with bottles, plastic, and scrap paper. He had spent the past several days collecting them to sell. At the junk shop, he struggled to lift the sack onto the steel scale, gasping for air. An old woman nearby, also carrying a bag of cans, noticed him and called out, "Hey, Ben." She brushed her graying hair from her face. "Did you hear the news?" Ben turned. "What news, Mom?" "They say your mom lost her job. Her boss fired her yesterday." Ben froze. "What? Why?" "They said her boss got annoyed. She was too quiet, didn't answer when people talked to her, and she was terrified of the man she worked for. That didn't sit well with them, so they just let her go. I even heard she didn't get her last paycheck because she didn't complete her required days." Ben paused from arranging his bottles, his chest tightened with emotion. He knew, even if Louisa never said a word, that there had to be a reason behind everything. "There's a reason why she's like that," he said softly. A teenager sitting nearby scoffed, scared of men, "but they say she used to seduce them. That's why she was fired. Maybe she's just lying to you." Ben turned sharply, barely containing his fury. "That's not true," he said. "My mom is kind. She doesn't hurt anyone." The people around them fell quiet. They heard the strength in his voice and the weight he carried on his small shoulders. The older woman gently patted Ben on the back. "What happened to your mom, son? Why is she like this?" Ben shook his head, confusion and helplessness written across his face. "I don't know. She's never told me. But even if she's different, she's the best mom in the world to me." Silence fell again until the shop worker called out, "Hey, kid, are you done weighing your stuff?" Ben turned to the woman behind the counter. "If we're done, ma'am, may I get paid now? I need to go home." She nodded. "Yes, give me a moment. I'll get your cash inside." Ben quietly returned to organizing the scrap materials that the owner had rejected. While others murmured, he stayed bowed, trying to compose himself. Despite his age, he understood dignity, love, and compassion better than most adults around him. He knew his mother was struggling, especially now that she had no job. She endured silently. She still smiled during dinner, even if her stomach was empty. That's why Ben kept pushing himself to help, even if he was just a child. Get ready for a twist that'll shock you to your core, only on Dark Voices. "Mama, I'm going out for a bit," he said the next morning, wearing an oversized t-shirt and an old cap. Louisa just smiled. She didn't ask where he was going. She gave him a hug and sent him off. Waiting at the corner was his older friend, Art. Ben had asked to tag along with him at work. Despite his thin frame, he was used to lifting things. He believed he could handle whatever Art did. "Are you sure about this, Ben?" Art asked. "What if your mom finds out?" "Shoo, don't worry," Ben said, grinning. "I just want to help. I want us to save money so I can go back to school." "All right," Art nodded. I talked to a guy at the new hotel construction site. He said you can help carry materials, but you'll need to stay hidden. They've got strict safety rules there. I'm good at hiding, big bro, Ben chuckled. No problem. When they reached the site, they were met by a large man with a clipboard and a hard hat. He looked Ben up and down. You sure you can do this? Ben nodded. Yes, sir. I just want to help my mom. The man sighed, then told one of the workers to give the boy some protective gear and bring him to where the hollow blocks were being moved. Ben didn't complain. Even though the blocks were far heavier than the sacks he was used to, he worked through sweat, dust, and searing heat. He didn't care. He was serious. The workers admired the boy's effort and attitude. He never complained, just answered with, "Yes, sir, and okay, sir." By noon, someone called out to him, "Ben, come over here and take a break. It's hot as hell." He walked toward a group of workers resting under a tarp-covered scaffold. One of them handed him a cold bottle of water. "Drink this. Don't work yourself to death." "You're still a kid," the man said with a laugh. Ben smiled and thanked him politely. "Why are you working so hard, Ben?" one of them asked. "You're more hard-working than some grown-ups here." Ben scratched the back of his head and replied, "I want to help my mom. She lost her job, and I want to save money so I can go back to school, but she doesn't know I'm working here. I don't want her to worry or get mad." The workers fell silent. They looked at him with admiration. His heart was pure. His goal was clear, to start over for himself and his mother. Stay tuned, because what happens next will change everything, only on Dark Voices. Elsewhere, inside a sleek black vehicle cruising down the freeway, a sharply dressed man sat in silence. His eyes were fixed on the window as the world blurred past. Wearing a dark blue suit, no tie, yet still elegant, he exuded quiet authority. This was Callum Salvatore, a renowned engineer and businessman in his early 40s. He didn't just own several companies. He was one of the most respected developers in the country. He was both the financier and lead engineer of the new luxury hotel currently under construction. In the front passenger seat sat his assistant, Ramel, who kept glancing at him through the rearview mirror while scrolling through a tablet. "Sir Callum," Ramel began, "the construction for Salvatore Grand Hotel is still underway. They've just completed the West Wing's foundation. Structural work is ongoing, but there's been a slight delay due to supply issues. Nothing too serious, though." Callum remained quiet, eyes still trained on the passing highway. "Supply issues?" he asked, raising an eyebrow slightly. "Yes, sir," Ramel nodded. "But the site engineer says it's under control. They've already adjusted the work plan." Callum gave a small nod, the most Ramel ever got out of him when he was thinking. Then Callum said, "Clear my schedule tomorrow." Ramel blinked. "Sir, but I'm visiting the site," Callum said firmly. "Tell them to expect me. I want full transparency. Make sure the engineers are ready with their reports." "Yes, sir," Ramel replied, already making adjustments on the tablet. "Good," Callum said as he swiped through the digital 3D renderings of the hotel project. In his world, there was no room for failure. The Salvatore name was never associated with slow, weak, or sloppy work. Early the next morning, Callum arrived at the construction site. He wore a simple dark gray polo shirt, black slacks, a safety vest, and a hard hat. Beside him were Ramel and the lead engineers. Each engineer took turns giving detailed updates. Callum listened in silence, studying every floor plan and measurement on the tablet Ramel held. Once the briefing concluded, the group toured the site so Callum could personally assess the progress. As they walked past the unloading area for the hollow blocks, Callum stopped abruptly. There, struggling with a heavy block, was a small, thin boy drenched in sweat and wearing worn-out clothes. "What the hell is that boy doing here?" Callum said coldly, his voice sharp with authority. The engineers froze. "This isn't a playground," he snapped. One of the site engineers, Louis, hesitantly spoke up. "Sir, he's not playing. He's actually been helping us out." Some of the workers said he's been coming by regularly. Callum's brows knit tighter. What? Well, sir, Louis continued, they said they felt bad for him. The boy insisted. Said he wanted to earn money to help his mother. She lost her job recently, so we let him help for now. Callum's expression hardened. Do you hear yourselves? Silence. This is child labor. It's unsafe for a kid to be here. I don't tolerate that in any of my projects. His tone was stern, and his eyes scanned the group. Give the boy his last pay, and tomorrow I don't want to see him anywhere near this site. Yes, sir, Louis replied quickly, eyes on the ground. Callum turned to watch the boy, Ben, lower the block and pass it to a worker. The scene hit him with unexpected force. A child should not be carrying the weight of the world like this. He didn't speak further. He turned and walked on. But as he continued his inspection, he couldn't shake the image of that little boy. The next day, Callum returned to the site to go over revised blueprints with his team. As they were reviewing design changes, Callum's expression suddenly shifted. There, walking toward him again, was the same boy. This time, the boy wasn't carrying anything heavy. He held a small plastic bag with what looked like a piece of bread inside. Why is that boy here again? Callum asked, startled. Engineer Louis rushed over. Sir, we told him he can't work here anymore, but he begged us yesterday. Said he wanted to talk to you personally, and well, I have a soft spot for kids, sir, so I told him to come back today. I hope you don't mind. Just then, Ben stepped forward, eyes wide and anxious. Sir, he said, his voice trembling, can I please talk to you? Callum looked him over, from the dirty clothes to the taped-up flip-flops that barely held together. Something inside him stirred again. Fine, he said. Make it quick. They walked to a quieter part of the site. Sir, please, Ben said desperately, let me work here again. I'll work harder. I'll do anything. Just please let me help. Callum frowned. You don't even understand why I told you to stop, do you? It's illegal to let a kid work like this. It's child labor. You're too young for this. But sir, Ben pleaded, I just want to help my mom. She lost her job. She's still looking for a new one. I want to help her. If you let me stay, I can save up for school, too. You pay more here than I make collecting bottles or begging. Please, sir. Callum sighed, staring at the boy. Where's your father? He asked. Why is he letting you work like this? Ben looked down. I don't know anything about my father. It's just me and my mom. Callum went quiet. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to follow the law. But something twisted in his chest as he watched the boy's pleading face. This wasn't just some random kid. Finally, he nodded. Fine, you can help, but no lifting anything heavy. I don't want you getting hurt. You'll help with the food prep for the workers. Nothing more. Ben's eyes lit up. Really? Thank you, sir. Before Callum could stop him, Ben threw his arms around him in a tight hug. Callum stood frozen, hands in the air. It was the first time in a long while someone had hugged him so purely. Something strange moved in his chest, warmth, familiarity. All right, that's enough, he muttered, looking away. Go be useful. Ben ran off, beaming, practically skipping back toward the workers. But before he could disappear into the crowd, Callum called out, Wait! Ben turned around, surprised. What's your name? Callum asked seriously. Benjamin, sir, the boy answered with the widest, most innocent grin. Callum froze. The world seemed to stop for a moment. Something tightened in his chest. There's more to this story that'll unravel secrets you won't believe, only on Dark Voices. Callum sat in the back seat of his luxury vehicle, staring blankly out the window as his chauffeur drove. His assistant, Riley, sat beside him, glancing at him through the rearview mirror. That boy, Benjamin, Callum finally spoke. Do you know anything about him? Riley gave a small nod. I figured you'd ask, sir, so I did a little digging earlier. Callum turned to him, intrigued. And what did you find out? His full name is Benjamin Asterio. He's only 8 years old. He collects scrap and bottles to help his mother make ends meet. He doesn't have a father, sir. No one knows who he is or where he went. People say the man just left one day and never came back, but judging by the boy's features, it's clear his father's not fully local. Mixed blood, maybe foreign. Callum listened in silence, but his thoughts deepened. His mother, Riley continued, from what I gathered, might have a disability. Some say she's mute. Others think she's just traumatized. Recently, she lost her job. So, Benjamin's been the one doing everything he can to feed them both. No known husband or partner, he added. The neighbors think she's unstable, but the boy, he's respectful, hardworking, and fiercely protective of his mother, like she's the only person in his world. The car was silent. Benjamin, Callum whispered under his breath. He glanced at his palm as if he could still feel the boy's hug from earlier that day. His chest tightened. Why does this boy feel so familiar, he wondered aloud. Why do I feel like I've known him before? Riley didn't answer, but deep down he had a feeling there was more to this connection than either of them yet understood. Days passed, but Benjamin never left Callum's mind. Every time he visited the construction site, he looked for him, and every time he saw the same thing, a young boy full of energy, always busy, always smiling, no matter how tired he looked. While other kids played or went to school, Ben was out there working alongside adults. It was painful to watch. One noon, under the blazing sun, Callum had just finished 2 hours of site inspection. His shirt was damp with sweat and his shoulders ached. He sat down on a plastic chair under a shaded scaffold, stretching his legs and closing his eyes briefly. Sir Callum, he opened his eyes. Ben stood there holding a cup of juice and a damp towel. Here, sir, the boy said cheerfully. It's really hot today. You might get dehydrated. And here's a towel to wipe off your sweat. Callum smiled. Before he could even respond, Ben had already offered him the juice. There was something natural in the boy's kindness. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rehearsed. He took the cup. You're really something, Benjamin, he said quietly. A few minutes passed. Callum sighed deeply, stretching again, his body sore, his neck stiff. He closed his eyes for a moment more. Then he heard Ben's voice again. Sir, do you want a massage? Callum opened one eye. Massage? Yes, sir, Ben grinned. Some of the workers said my massages help. They say I'm really good at it. Callum chuckled, a rare occurrence. All right, Ben. Let's see what you've got. Ben walked around and stood behind him. He gently pressed his small hands on Callum's shoulders. His pressure was soft, but somehow it eased more than just muscle aches. It brought comfort inside and out. Is this okay, sir? Ben asked softly. Callum gave a slight nod. That's surprisingly good. Where'd you learn this? From my mom. One time I got sick. She massaged me, and I got better, so I asked her to teach me. Now when she's tired, I do the same for her. You're a good son, Callum murmured. Your mom's lucky to have you. Ben didn't say anything, unsure how to respond. He just kept massaging. But Callum couldn't stop thinking about the boy. Even back at the office, when he was reviewing paperwork or meeting with clients, he found his mind drifting back to that smile, those bright eyes, that cheerful voice full of warmth and respect. One afternoon, as he sat in his office staring blankly at a document he had read 3 times without absorbing a word, his friend Adrian walked in for a scheduled business meeting. Hey, Adrian said, sipping coffee from across the desk. You've been staring at that same page for 10 minutes. What's going on? Callum shook his head and looked out the window. There's a kid, he said slowly, a boy at the site. Works harder than most men. Polite, always smiling, but he looks so tired. Adrian raised an eyebrow. A kid at the construction site? Yeah, Callum nodded. His name is Benjamin, and I don't know why, but I feel something when I see him.
Like there's a connection, like I was meant to meet him. Adrian leaned back and studied his friend.
You're being sentimental, he said with a small smile.
Maybe you're just moved.
It's rare these days to find a kid who works hard without complaining.
Most kids would rather whine than lift a finger. Callum crossed his arms.
His gaze remained distant.
Maybe, but it feels like more than that. Like I've known him somehow. Adrian grinned. You sound like a man with a mystery to solve.
The next morning, before leaving his office, Callum called for his secretary. Prepare something simple for Benjamin, he instructed.
Just a small gift. I'm heading to the site again. Noted, sir, the assistant responded. I'll have it ready within an hour. Nothing extravagant, Callum added.
Maybe a backpack, new shoes, some snacks, and school supplies.
Yes, sir.
He couldn't explain what he was feeling, but one thing was clear: he couldn't ignore the boy.
And this time, he wanted to see that smile again, even if he didn't fully understand why it mattered so much.
When Callum arrived at the site, he headed straight inside. Riley followed, carrying a few paper bags filled with items they'd prepared for Benjamin. There was a strange eagerness in Callum's chest, a quiet hope that he'd see the boy again. But as he scanned the area, something felt off.
Benjamin was nowhere in sight.
Usually, the boy would be bustling around, offering water, carrying small tools, flashing that eager smile, but today there was no sign of him.
Callum approached one of the foremen. Where's Benjamin? He asked immediately.
The man scratched his head.
Sir, he hasn't shown up since yesterday.
No word from him either.
Callum frowned.
That's not like him, he muttered.
Something must be wrong.
The workers exchanged glances.
One of them spoke up.
Sir, I think his friend Art might know where he lives.
Want us to call him? Callum nodded.
Yes, right away, please. A few minutes later, the boy named Art came over. He looked a little confused, holding his hard hat as he approached.
You're Art? Callum asked. Yes, sir. Do you know where Benjamin lives? I need to see him.
I heard he hasn't been at the site.
Art hesitated, then nodded.
I do, sir, but they live deep inside the neighborhood. It's kind of hard to find if you're not from there.
Callum took a deep breath and nodded with resolve. Then come with me. I need to make sure he's okay.
Yes, sir, Art replied, surprised. They walked down the narrow alleys, Callum taking in the cramped and broken homes around them, low ceilings, patched roofs, and sagging fences. The air smelled of dust and garbage, and mud clung to the soles of his expensive shoes, but he didn't care.
His only thought was, Benjamin.
He's been living here all this time, Callum wondered. Yes, sir, Art replied. He lives just down that path with his mom. At the end of a narrow alley, Art pointed at a shack nearly buried under scrap wood, old tin sheets, and plastic tops. The roof sagged. The ground was bare earth. A few damp clothes hung near the door next to a couple of potted plants that someone had obviously tried to care for.
Callum stared in disbelief. This is where he lives?
Yes, sir, Art said quietly.
That's their home, but it looks like no one's there right now. Maybe Ben and his mom went somewhere. Callum's brow furrowed. Louisa, he murmured, hearing the name for the first time.
Yes, sir, that's his mom, but she doesn't speak. People say she's crazy, but honestly, she's really kind.
Callum didn't respond.
He just kept staring at the small, fragile house.
A wave of emotion surged through him.
We'll wait, he said softly.
I want to see them. Minutes later, a familiar voice called out from a distance. Mr. Callum, Big Bro Art.
They turned to see Benjamin running toward them, a sack slung over his shoulder. He was sweaty, clothes slightly dirted, but his face beamed with happiness.
He jogged up to them and asked, Sir, what are you doing here? And why are you with Art? Art smiled and answered, Mr. Callum asked me to take him to you. He wanted to see you.
Ben turned to Callum, slightly startled and shy.
Did I do something wrong, sir? He asked nervously.
Callum shook his head with a faint smile.
No, I just wanted to see you. The workers said you hadn't been coming to the site. I was concerned.
Ben scratched his head, embarrassed.
Oh, my mom found out I'd been working there. She got really upset and told me not to go back. He looked down. Sorry, I didn't get to tell anyone.
I haven't seen Art either, so I couldn't let him know I wouldn't be coming back.
Why? Callum asked. Ben's voice dropped. Because she doesn't want me working.
She says I should focus on school instead. She wants me to play, rest, and let her take care of everything. But I still sneak out to collect scraps sometimes, and sometimes I beg, too.
He looked up. I want to buy Noodles for her birthday. It's coming up.
Then he added pleadingly, but please don't tell my mom, sir.
She'll get mad again.
Callum stared at the boy, who looked so small, so tired, and yet so full of love and hope. Despite the dirt on his cheeks and the sweat on his brow, there was nothing more genuine than the care shining in his eyes. Before Callum could respond, an elderly woman came running toward them, out of breath and clearly shaken.
Ben, your mother. She's in trouble again. They're harassing her down at the corner.
Ben's eyes widened with panic.
Where?
Where is she, Grandma? He asked quickly.
Follow me. Hurry.
Without another word, Ben turned to Callum. Sir, please stay here.
I have to go to my mom.
But Callum placed a firm hand on his shoulder.
We're going with you.
They took off running together. As they neared the street corner, they saw the crowd. A group of men and women were surrounding a frail, trembling woman in a tattered shawl. She cowered beneath their shouts, her body shaking as she tried to hold back tears.
Get out of here, you crazy woman, yelled one.
You seduce men with your looks and pretend you're a saint, you lunatic, another shrieked. Ben screamed as he ran to her.
Stop it. Get away from my mom. She didn't do anything to you. Why are you hurting her?
He tried to get close, but an old man shoved him to the ground.
You little psycho. Leave.
Ben hit the pavement hard and gasped in pain.
Callum saw it all.
His eyes blazed. He surged forward, forcing his way through the crowd. Stop it, he shouted. He threw his arms around Louisa from behind, shielding her just as a piece of wood came swinging toward her.
It struck his back instead. Ah, he winced.
Sir! Art cried, rushing to him. Ben, tears in his eyes, had reached his mother. He hugged her tightly.
Mom, are you okay? Mom!
Chaos broke out. The people who had been shouting fell silent, realizing whom they had just attacked. Callum slowly turned the woman in his arms to face him. He pushed back her tangled hair, his eyes widened in shock, her face drained of color. Lua, he whispered, breathless.
Lua, is that you? She didn't respond.
Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed in his arms. He stood frozen, overwhelmed. It was her, the woman he had once loved, the one he had searched for, long believed gone from his life. Don't miss the emotional climax of this story, only on Dark Voices. Callum held Louisa in his arms while Ben clung to her on the other side, sobbing uncontrollably.
Please, Mom, wake up.
All around them, the same people who had just moments ago been shouting and throwing things now stood frozen, ashamed, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Callum stared at Louisa's unconscious face. His hands trembled as he gently brushed the dirt from her cheek. Why, his mind screamed. Why are you like this? What happened?